Welcome back from our break. It's my pleasure to introduce the next panel and our panelists. I'm delighted to introduce in person here Venerable Bhante Sujato. Bhante Sujato is a former musician. Bhante Sujato became a monk in the ascetic forest tradition of Ajahn Chah in 1994. Bhante Sujato founded Santee Forest Monastery in 2003. Following Bhante Sujato's wishes, Santee Monastery became a Bhikkhuni monastery, Vihara, in 2012. It is important to emphasise that Bhante Sujato and his teacher, Ajahn Brahm, were instrumental in re-establishing Bhikkhuni ordination in the forest Sangha of Ajahn Chah. And we know that he and Ajahn Brahm took significant risks to do this. And on behalf of everyone, we're very, very grateful. It's great to have him as a panellist today. I'm excited to introduce another person that inspires us all, Venerable Tashi Choedup. Now, they are joining us online from India. Venerable Tashi Choedup is a trans-feminine Buddhist monk with more than a decade of experience in human rights and community work. They're a member of the Telangana State Government's Welfare Board for Transgender Persons. They work in Queer Trans Wellness and Support Centre at Yaganta, Hyderabad. They are currently the National Coordinator of India at the Foundation of the Preservation of Mahayana Tradition. It's wonderful to have you here, Venerable Tashi. And I'm also thrilled to introduce Venerable Ajahn Sona, joining us online from British Columbia, Canada. Venerable Ajahn Sona is a first-wave Western Theravada ordained monk and the Abbot of Birken Forest Buddhist Monastery. Ajahn Sona has over 30 years in the robes. He's now referred to as Luang Por, or Venerable Father, by his closest disciples. Ajahn Sona, deeply interested in the ecological movements of the environmental and critical times. Wonderful panellists. Our panel will be moderated by Tina Ng, who is the founder and president of Metta Centre. Please enjoy our panel. Thank you, Tina.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Back again. And to those joining us online, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. To our venerables who are there, hello, and paying our respects to you both and to Bhante Sujato. I'm really looking forward to this session. Today, this session, we have a question that's posed. And after that, we also have some questions that the audience has been asking throughout today's conference. So I'll also be asking our panellists those questions as well. So I'm looking forward to quite an interactive dialogue. If anyone has any questions during this session, it's a great time to ask it. We have 3 esteemed teachers and very well-practiced monks as well. And also it's important for us to be here and to be able to share. And I apologise, I did say monks. I'm so sorry, Venerable Tashi. And so if we can also, if you have any questions, please pop that into the chat and also pop that into any of the pieces of paper that's going around and you can pass that over to me. Okay. So the question that is being posed today for this session is, does universal love oppose self-improvement? Now, I understand that this is a question and a topic that Ajahn Sona, you had suggested. So could I invite you first, Ajahn, to start off with what you think in terms of this question, why you posed it, and any thoughts with that? Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of misunderstandings about this, and I think there's a lot of critiques, not just of loving kindness or general loving kindness, but even such things as mindfulness from some quarters of society, especially those who want social change, social justice. They sometimes think of general loving kindness as a kind of a cop-out, and also even the practice of mindfulness. Instead of gazing at our navels, why aren't we out on the streets changing things? So this is kind of a misunderstanding in general, and is an easy critique of these kind of practices. But usually it's based on a lack of information about what is meant in the Buddhist tradition by loving kindness. And it's good to, as a little seminar on loving kindness, to address all of these criticisms. And the criticisms sometimes come from very honest and legitimate places. And so we should make it clear that the nature of loving kindness doesn't exclude a lot of personal work as well, and an advocacy for others to improve the quality and of their lives in a systematic way. But I won't get ahead of myself on that. I don't want to just answer because it's kind of presented as a question: does loving kindness oppose self-improvement? And I say no. I think we want to talk about it, and in what ways does it not oppose self-improvement? And what is self-improvement? So I just would like, that's why I proposed that question. I mean, there's a lot of ways we could have talked about loving kindness. It's almost an endless possibility, and it's so rich. But I was more or less asked, can you come up with a sort of a topic for the discussion? And that was what came to mind at the time. So that is my offering for the moment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ajahn. An interesting question to pose to the panel and to those who are present here. And next I'll be asking Venerable Tashi about the thoughts that Venerable may have about this particular topic. And Venerable Tashi, earlier, I do apologise in adding about referring to you as a monk. Of course, you're a monk, which is a very interesting way of presenting what you have been advocating for as well. So if you'd like to share about that question, does universal love oppose self-improvement?
I think, love is an idea that, loving kindness is an idea, love is an idea that, most of us people in the world in many ways agree with or aspire to practice and express in whatever the limited way possible, I think, right? But also, I think because of our ignorance, and the kind of the world that we have built around ourselves, that very idea of love and the practice of it is also very, very twisted in many ways, I think, right? That's why I think, I mean, we are generally, if you really think about it, we are not really hateful beings. Hating is an exhausting affair, to wake up in the morning and deciding that I'm going to hate so-and-so person today, or I'm going to hate so-and-so, institute today. It's a very exhausting affair. It takes a lot of energy. Loving, whereas comes to us, or at least supposed to come to us much easily. But even in that, I think it is so twisted. For example, if I talk about Indian context, there's a lot of in the current days, there's a lot of tension between religious communities. There's a growth of a particular kind, one religion, and there is a inciting of violence on other religions because of it. And when you really think about it, the dominant religious people or the dominant religious community, they are doing it because they love their religion, or at least that's what they say, because they love their faith, they love their traditions, and they want to protect them. And the answer to it is to put down other faiths, other religions. And I think for all of us religious people, especially, I think the faith that we practice and the faith we express love towards too is difficult to be critical about, I think. And the same thing also is often we apply to everything else. If we love something, then we, can't be critical about it. We just have to simply love it. It's a very reduced, limited idea of love, I think. And that's something we have to explore and think more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Venerable Tashi. Bhante Sujato, any thoughts and comments with this?
Thank you. Before I go on, can I just say good day to the Venerables there? So Venerable Sona, So good to see you. Haven't seen you for like an embarrassingly
years.
long time. We'll
30 years.
we'll discreetly avoid saying exactly how many decades that is, but it's so good to see you again. How's things in Canada, by the way?
Very well, very good.
Climate
Yes.
change not affecting you at all?
It's affecting us terribly. We are surrounded by forest fires and calamities almost on a daily basis. I think we're in competition with Australia for that.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. Yeah, it must be terrible. Well, I mean, we have a few things like, you know, multiple temperature records falling on a daily basis and this kind of thing.
Yes.
But, you know, nothing that actually changes people's lives. Anyway, Venerable Tashi, also very good to meet you. And we haven't met before, so wonderful to meet you. You're in India. Just to let you know, I'm also living in India.
Oh,
yeah.
Glad to know that.
It's called Harris Park, Little India.
Little India.
So yeah, so that's where I am coming as well. Anyway, so just to say, I guess, a few words to the topic. When I was before I ordained as a monk, when I was in Thailand, and I remember I was staying at Wat Nanachat with Venerable Sona, and one of the memories I have in those days was the tea times when Venerable Sona and Venerable Wimalo were there. Then there would be a lot of laughs at the tea time, and my mother came to visit, and I was just an anagarika at the time, and she said to me something about how she'd heard like Buddhism was all about not having any attachments, and she was kind of a bit worried about this, like what this meant in terms of her being a mother and not having any attachments, and that means that she didn't really know what it meant. And I said to her that the Buddha's primary example of metta was the love that a mother had for her child, and that to practice universal love is not to stop loving those who are close to us, but to use that as an example to love universally in the same way. So it's not about cutting off love for those that we love, but it's about expanding it to become universal. And so this is where I think that when it comes to applying these universal ideals of metta, that we have to begin at home.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and such beautiful themes that are running through. The question I would like to then ask, and I think this has already been touched on, but just to elaborate further. So with the practice of universal love with metta, acceptance is a big part of that. So how do we balance accepting whether it's ourselves or other people, but at the same time also wanting to strive to improve ourselves without being too critical of ourselves? So, and I don't mind who wishes to answer that. First come, first serves. Otherwise, I shall nominate. Oh, also polite. Okay, I shall nominate then. So Ajahn Sona, perhaps to you.
Yes, this is the thing, is that how do we it is like a mother loves her child, but she still says, dear, don't put your finger up your nose in front of everybody. It doesn't look nice. But she does that without the slightest dislike of the child. She does it because she loves the child. And she's willing to face the fury of the child in denying it a cookie sometimes, etc. But it's always with the right intention behind it. At least the mother and child that the Buddha is speaking of. Not all mothers and children are in that exalted class of that true the exalted mother's love for a child. And you can see that, in fact, in families, they are genuinely withholding their sense of offering safety and acceptance to the child and to the other members of the family if they don't meet their demands. So that would be a distortion of this ideal of the mother for the child. But it doesn't, and you see mothers visiting the prisons and talking to their sons who are up for execution in a few weeks, having done terrible things, but still the mother is there. It's not that they approve of anything they've done, but the genuine realization is that whatever the failings of another are, there's another level of the game that is being played, and that is that it doesn't necessarily affect the quality of your emotion, and the mother is the primary beneficiary of this. You know, there's a lot of I'm very interested in this notion of trauma and how many people are traumatized, and there's some insight into that by a doctor that is local to British Columbia, Dr. Gabor Mate, and he just spends a lot of time talking about the connection between the facial expression of the mother to the child very early in life. There's this registration, and the child very early in life is registering the nature of anxiety, distraction in the mother's life. So it may not have to do with the child, but the mother might be under stress and so forth, and is exhibiting this just in micro expressions of the face and the feel, and the child feels insecure. One of the definitions that the Buddha gives of loving kindness, finally after going through a long list of qualities that you should develop, is that it's primarily the wish for safety, is may you be safe. And this primary connection between the mother and the child, that child, if the mother is well and the face and the feeling of the body registers, then they will know the feeling of safety. And that is what this sense of loving kindness is, this feeling of safety. And if that is not developed early in life, the knowledge of that sense of anxiety and fear is carried into your life, and you look for that safety. But if you have not experienced it early, you may not know where to find it. And you have to replace it with other things, because the lack of that is the lack of the sense of loving kindness, and the safety that goes with it drives people in search of something. And quite often the search results in something that slightly resembles loving kindness, and that is drugs. It is the kind of a crude approximation of the sense of safety and relaxation, which has not been developed within one. So this is very important, that in the interactions within the family and within the sangha, etc., that though we convey hopefully skillful advice, and the Buddha asks us to critique other monks and to offer them suggestions for improving their behavior if it's lacking, etc. He asks us to review this. Is this done with a mind of loving kindness? So there's some preliminaries that we have to assess within ourselves before we do this, because we also will transmit this through the macro expressions, through the tone of the voice, through the eyes. That monk who's being critiqued will know. They'll feel it as well. And of course, the lay people, if you're a teaching monk or you're an abbot in a monastery or something, you're encountering many, maybe hundreds, even thousands of people on a one-on-one basis. And this is the transmission also of loving kindness. and most people are asking as well, please help me improve. I'm asking you to do this, and so I'm willing to do it. But it's done with a sense of loving kindness. Sometimes I say to people at the end, I give loving kindness retreats, as well, up to 10 days on loving kindness. And most of the people who come to these things are upper middle path. They're smarter than the average person. They're better looking. They're wealthier, etc. And they have time to go off to these retreats and monasteries and so forth. And I often tell them, although you are smarter than the average person, you're better looking than the average person, you're more educated than the average person, in spite of all that, I still love you. And it's because it reverses the normal thing that in spite of all your faults, I still love you. In spite of and many people are brilliant, wonderful, etc. In spite of that, I love you anyway. Because that's what unconditional loving kindness is you don't get extra points for being so darn nice or good or smart. That's the quality of the loving kindness. But it doesn't mean that we neglect the methods for improving the quality of one's life as well.
Excellent answer, and such great analogies and examples. Thank you, Ajahn. And because
I'm glad you thought it was excellent, but do you still love me anyway?
I do. Even before your answer, and even more so now, if that's possible. Thank you, Ajahn. Just as an aside, I've been listening to a lot of your Dharma talks on the side, even though this is the first time I'm conversing with you. There you go. Lots of metta to you, Ajahn. But really, really wonderful insights in that. And that leads me to one of the questions that one of the audience has posed earlier. And perhaps this is a question I can ask Venerable Tashi. So the person had asked this: is there any way compassionate outlook can be developed from childhood? Any thoughts about this, Venerable?
Just wanted to quickly add to your earlier question and then come to this. I think in terms of, love, of course, requires acceptance. But the trick about acceptance is that, especially whether you're a Buddhist or not, the acceptance is not only about, I accept everything that you are, but also the acceptance has to be about that I also accept the possibility and the potential what else you could be, right? So that means I accept in love where you are, but also accept the potential and possibility that you could be something more. So in love, there's also disagreement, and the disagreement comes from the place knowing or accepting this innate potential of the other person's ability to be better, ability to become a better person, right? So I think that acceptance is also important. And love necessarily does not mean only agreement. I think love also essentially means a lot of disagreements, and you need a lot of love because there are going to be a lot of disagreements. And it, for us, all of us to grow, there has to be disagreements, I think. Can compassion be developed from childhood? I think in many ways, yes, right? I mean, a lot of course, science says today that, there's a lot around developmental psychology, young infants, what influences them, all of that. But I think if it's a very huge casual thing, if you simply even observe around us. For example, right now, in the kind of social context where I am and what I observe or what I see, young people have access to a lot of information. Even young children have access to a lot of information these days, and which is a good thing, because that means they are being equipped with a lot of things to think about. But in the process of that, are they getting the support, to be able to process and think about it, not as individuals, but as collectives, as communities, as a group of people who care for each other, right? I think because that is not happening, with so much of information that young people, young children, young adults get these days, gets misguided and, shot in different directions that are often harmful. In that sense, can young people develop, nurture compassion? or I think any of us, young, old, I think compassion has to be nurtured and developed. There's a potential, there's a seed of compassion, but I think it requires the nurturance to actually become a reality, actually become a practice. And if we can begin at a younger age, great, I think. But I think it's never late. You know, whether you're young, whether, you know, whatever the age group we are in, I think we can still become compassionate. And that has to be a firm belief, not just for ourselves, but also it has to be a firm belief for other people, I think, that they can also be. Right now, you know, you look at someone grumpy, angry, and then immediately the thought is, oh, then also we are, you know, slightly, at least a bit, if not fully, right, that annoyed at their grumpiness and angriness. And then there's some fixation that this is an angry person, or this is, you know, a frustrated person. But to move from that fixation into kind of let the imagination of the mind, you know, be present, that, oh, this person can also be a compassionate person, right? This person also can become a compassionate person and a kind, loving person. The anger is right now only in this moment, right? And let me not fix on it, right? Similarly, fixing on our own, not getting fixated on our own stories we tell about ourselves, because we all have narratives about ourselves. You know, I have a narrative about what kind of person I am. You know, I mean, I can tell about myself, oh, I never get angry. Then, you know, like, I can probably tell myself that, oh, I don't get angry at all. But that itself is a story that I am imprisoning myself in, you know, telling that, oh, I never get angry. And when I get angry, then because I have a story in my head that I never get angry, I'm going to be more hard on myself. How could I get angry, right? And that means I am more fixated on that than thinking, how do I transform my anger into love and compassion? So I think, one sense, if we can arrive at a point where there's a constant mindfulness about that, compassion has to be cultivated. Young, old, you know, what gender, what social context, whether you're Buddhist monastic, you know, often, for example, right, when someone sees a Buddhist monastic, oh, they're loving, kind, compassionate. No, Buddhist monastics can be angry, grumpy, frustrating, annoyed people too. And that they also have to, you know, practice compassion, cultivate compassion constantly. And putting on the robes is not going to make us any compassionate. Probably it can even, you know, put blindfolds to our limitations and our faults, I think, which means we have to be more careful. So young age, whatever the age, I think cultivation has to be everyday practice, every moment's practice, I think.
Thank you. And that is so inspiring, because it is something that we need to practice moment to moment. It doesn't matter what our age is, compassion is universal. And also, I love that about being able to really love not only the person, but also the potentiality of what they can be. And in that, it's a really beautiful practice. So, Bhante, Sujato, you were just saying represent.
Represent. Yeah, grumpy monks, yes.
Anything else you would like to add to this before I move to some of the other questions?
Not really, but I mean, just building on a couple of things that the Venerables have said. But the first one, like I think the question was like how young do we start teaching young people in childhood? I kind of question the point of view of that. Like, we would maybe swap it around and say, like, when can we start learning from young people about how to be compassionate? Because I think there's something natural about it, and it's something normal. And I think that what we too often do is strip that away. You know, we put kids in hyper-competitive environments, we reward, you know, beating others and all of these kinds of things, and we send them a very mixed message. You know, where on the one hand we expect them to be nice and all of these things, but on the other hand we put them in an environment that's actually going to reward the very opposite. And we you know, that goes all the way to the top, to the heads of corporations and the heads of governments, and they're seeing all of these things where you're actually being rewarded for being cruel and dishonest and all of these things, while we're expecting them to do that other thing. So maybe we shouldn't be so much thinking about how do we, you know, make young people be more compassionate, but more just trying to let them grow and learn from them the ways in which they naturally express compassion, and to try to reward that and support that.
That's great. So really, it's something that we can learn from each other, regardless of how old we are. It's something that we can practice no matter how old we are.
Yeah.
Very
And
universal.
right. And I think maybe the way that it's expressed changes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So we do have some questions who have come from the audience. And again, if there's more questions from the audience here in person as well, feel free to pass them over. So one question is this. There's a few questions about people who struggle to practice loving kindness. So this person has said that they've struggled with loving kindness when they try to generate it for some sentient beings, for example, parasites or some animals or insects who breed uncontrollably. So, for example, this person talks about the news about the mice plague, when they see numerous amounts of rabbits in Australia, struggling to find that compassion for them. They're thinking that it's their natural habitat. Predators are taking karma of killing them. If they are not predators, these creatures may multiply and destroy environment and perhaps cause a famine. So in such situations, humans are taking this karma of killing, but do we really have a choice? And this person feels like it's such an ethical dilemma. Okay. So, Ajahn Sona, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, loving kindness needs to be balanced with a large view of things. The Buddha is not, he's not really trying to save everybody's life. He's suggesting you don't kill because it's bad for the person who kills. It's also unwanted for the being that gets killed. But at the same time, he's very in touch with this reality of the certainty of death and the uncertainty of when. So in the midst of the endless slaughter that's going on in the world amongst all beings, the Buddha is still remaining equanimous in the midst of this. So this is, loving kindness is not isolated, doesn't mean that it's isolated from the large view of things, and particularly this sense of this equanimity, this balance. So this is when you early in your practice, quite often it's this injunction to be very loving and kindly, and at the same time being overwhelmed by all of the beings around you that are not cooperating with your kindliness. And especially, say, in monastic life in the Thai jungles with all the ants and so forth. But at the same time, we're not sentimental. We're not sentimental about this. It's not about preserving all of the animals on the face of the earth. It ain't going to happen. Or even the humans on the face of the earth. It just, in the midst of this, what the Buddha describes basically as, all can see the sickening sight. There's death and destruction and suffering and so forth. In the midst of this, what's the best response? And that is this learning to go to this vision of loving kindness. And it is letting go of all of the discrimination and so forth, but not being unrealistic or sentimental about this either. So what will happen, of course, is that you have a choice. The individual has a choice whether to join in the killing or they say they have to cull all these animals or get rid of the rabbits in Australia. Somebody's got to kill them and so forth. And it's your individual choice. Are you going to do this, or are you going to participate in this or not? But whether you make that choice or not doesn't mean that anybody else is going to be interested in your choice or even listen to you about that. This stuff will go on. It's just the nature of humans. We're not going to reverse this in the near future, as far as I can see. But we make personal choices, and we may influence others as well with those personal choices. We are the ones, we decide, I shall not kill. Others will. There's a nice sutta that says, others will do this. I will not. So this is the decision, how you're going to navigate through life. You make your personal decision, your personal ethic decision. I will not do this. I will not participate in it. I won't approve of it either. But others will. And I don't give my peace away because others will. I also have a choice about how I feel in the midst of the slaughter. I will preserve my peace, and I will preserve that loving kindness, while others will not.
Great. Thank you, Ajahn. So that particular question was geared towards us in some ways being a bystander, and we may not need to actively participate in that. So that's a really good answer to that question. We have another question, or a series of questions, where it suggests that there is that choice for us to be that active participant. So Bhante, Sujato, if I can ask this of you then, these are the questions. Is it wrong to kill a bug that can harm you? How about parasites? How about if it was a soldier or intruder who was going to kill you? Imagine you being in that situation, just...
that escalated quickly. Okay, so I think one of the key to understanding that was in the original question that said ethical dilemma. Dilemma. Die, right? Die means two. Yeah? You know who said that? Aristotle. Aristotle, the law of the excluded middle. It's either right or it's wrong. And so the history of Western philosophy has been built on the idea that things are either right or wrong. And did the Buddha say that? No, he did not. I think it's really important to appreciate the ways that our discourse, our global discourse, is driven by language and ideas and concepts that are often unconsciously inherited from a Eurocentric point of view. The Buddha didn't talk about ethical dilemmas, he talked about ethical tetralemmas. 4, not 2, 4. I know, I think it's because 4 was a bit too much for the Europeans to comprehend at the time. But the Indians had very advanced mathematics, so they were able to get their minds around 4. So the 4 is dark karma with dark result. Okay, that's what we want to try to avoid at all costs. Bright karma with bright result. That's a good one. We want to do that. Then there is dark and bright karma with dark and bright result. So what the Buddha is saying there is something which is very profound. He's saying that sometimes you can't just reduce things to being right or wrong. Actually, that action is intrinsically a mixture of both good and bad things. If somebody, you could say if somebody's attacking you, well, I'll relinquish my life or whatever. But what if somebody's attacking someone next to you, a child, an innocent person? Would be that right then? Well, if I decide to kill that person in defense of that innocent person, then irreducibly killing that person is wrong. And also, irreducibly, saving the vulnerable person is right. And is that action right or wrong? It's both. And that's an irreducible fact of the world. So this comes back to the point that Venerable Sona was mentioning before, that actually the world is complex and will have these dilemmas of what we do about it, which leads us to the fourth option, which is karma that leads to the ending of karma. So if you really want to be able to escape these kind of tetralemmas, there's only one way, and that is get enlightened. Nice.
The solution for everything. Thank you, Bhante. Venerable Tashi, next question's for you. Again, very related to the earlier two. Someone has asked that, how does Buddhism view vegetarianism as a form of compassion to animals? And under what condition is eating meat allowed and not considered killing?
This is quite a it's a very, very debated topic, I think, especially in the Indian context where, the food is not, I mean, I think this is a reality almost everywhere in the world. I think food is not simply food, or it can't be simply also categorized into violent and non-violent food, or food that has come through violent means, or food that has come through non-violent means. I think there's no food that actually comes through non-violent means, because food production itself, the way in the modern world that we do, or we have been doing for last few hundred years, involves a great amount of violence. If you really think about, I think the age of agriculture among in human civilization is probably some 11,000 years old. Before that, we were supposedly going around hunting and killing and eating. And then when we started agriculture, we started in a place where by destroying entire forest, displacing a lot of beings, and then we started agriculture. We started growing food. So is plant-based food really non-violent? I don't think it is. But does it mean it is less violent? Probably yes, it is. It could be probably less violent, right? But this, again, the idea, the binary notion of violent and non-violent food is very harmful, I think. I think that's why Buddha, during his time, 2,500 years ago in India, what now we call India, back then, a group of kingdoms around, where people had different food cultural practices. A lot of people were consuming meat, right? A lot of people were eating meat. And as monastic community, monks and nuns were expected to go on alms to receive the food. So I think it was clear when Buddha said that, when you go to seek alms, receive whatever is given with gratitude. Don't start a conversation that I'm vegetarian, I'm vegan, and all of that which we often tend to do today. I mean, in my personal experience, I was born in a family, a dominant caste Hindu family, where meat eating was a practice. And then I became a vegetarian at some point of time in my school. And then I became vegan in my, late teens. And I've remained a vegan for many years. And in the process, what I've learned, I'm being invited to people's places. I am, even before I was a monastic. Right, I'm going to different setups, different socio-cultural contexts where different kinds of food is being offered. And every time I tell I'm a vegan, they have to do so much going around fixing some food for me, which seemed really unjust, because I'm going and receiving their kindness, and then here I am telling what I eat and don't eat, because I think this is right food and this is not right food. Right. And I think that's a very, violent thing in itself, I think. Right. So I've started eating food, whatever is offered. I don't pick meat for myself. I don't actively seek anything that is arrived from killing some being, but I eat whatever is given. I think Buddha said this some 2,500 years ago. Eat what is given to you. And food, even then, Buddha thought, is economical, is social, is political, as much as it is vegetarian and non-vegetarian, or meat and vegetarian, I think. And, people need to eat. For example, in India, a lot of people who eat meat are people from, marginalized economic backgrounds and marginalized caste backgrounds. And for a long time, there's also this notion within Indian caste system that people who eat meat are uncivilized, who are unintelligent, cannot be educated. So there's a lot of discrimination that happens around the food, I think, which we have to be very careful when we are talking about saving and protecting animals. But in the process, what are we doing? Are we mindful about the complexities of our life and the world that we live in, is what we have to be careful about, I think. Otherwise, a very well-meaning, non-violent practice of eating vegetarian food can also cause a lot of violence around and a lot of in the systems we live in, I think. So food is a lot of things and not just violent and non-violent. So we have to have that mindfulness, I think.
Excellent. Venerable Tashi, someone online has said, this is the best answer about food I have ever heard. And I would agree with that as well. Thank you. We've got some practice questions now. So lots of people who have questions about the practice of metta and various things. So Ajahn Sona, the first one is specifically asked to you, which is, will the meditation object of the breath eventually lead to the same place as a meditation object of metta? Thank you.
There's a sutta called the 11 Benefits of Loving Kindness. And one of the benefits is that loving kindness, if developed, the mind is easily calmed. And so one of the benefits of practice of loving kindness is that it may, in fact, lead you more easily to breath meditation. But if you can manage breath meditation, then the calming effects of breath meditation, then the step over into loving kindness is that much closer as well. Breath meditation, of course, if it's successful, bringing you into a certain degree of serenity, with that is accompanied the primary emotion of that is joy. So, and joy is a feature also of loving kindness. If you manage to enter into a solid experience of loving kindness, it's definitely very, very joyful. It's intrinsically joyful. So the breath and loving kindness meet in joy. They hug each other in joy.
Thank you, Ajahn. Bhante Sujato, next question's for you. What are some ways to practice mindfulness of feelings or emotions? Sometimes lack of awareness can lead to rather uncomfortable mental states like serious depression.
Okay. Just before coming to that question, just let me briefly comment on the question that Venerable Sona just answered. And the person who asked that question mentioned about the different meditation objects. I just want to point out, just from my Pali nerdery, that there's no word in the Pali canon equivalent to an object of meditation. The word that we're translating there as object is aramana, which is a later usage. And I think that this is a kind of a technical detail of language, but it speaks to something which is broader about how we talk about meditation. Think about a phrase like this: what meditation object are you going to use to make your mind peaceful? This might sound like a normal statement, but think about the language. You have an object. You are going to use that object. You're going to make your mind peaceful. Right? This is a very kind of industrial language, right? The Buddha taught the path to Nibbana, and he taught the way of uplifting and developing the mind. So just a sort of a word about being aware of using this excessively utilitarian language in meditation. So that was just that. So then the question was about...
Before you do, that's a really, really good point. And I just want to ask, so what would be a better way to approach this?
Well, you try to be mindful. So, for example, rather than saying, use your breath to make you peaceful, you might say, be mindful with your breath, so that will lead to peace, or something like that. And
cultivate metta.
That's right.
To that.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can choose to use language which is more holistic, more connected, rather than I think we kind of unconsciously sort of adopt a lot of this kind of, it's almost like business speak and stuff like that, where you sort of have your outcomes and you want to, I'm going to do this to get that outcome. Yeah.
Because that could be an impediment as well to
That's
meditation, right?
That's right, yeah, because you're seeing this thing as something I'm going to use to get what I want.
And it's the I and the control and the getting and the craving,
exactly.
all of that comes from it.
Exactly, yeah.
Just from changing the way we speak and the way we approach it.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Now
There you go.
I forgot the other question. But,
Oh, for the other one. The other one is about feelings.
Yes.
And about being aware of painful feelings. Is that correct?
Yeah. So practicing mindfulness of feelings or emotions.
Yeah.
Because the lack of that could lead to mental states that are uncomfortable, like serious depression.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So look, I'm going to take the mention of serious depression there as a kind of a bit of a, I guess, a bit of a red flag or something like that. First thing is that if you really are suffering from serious depression, you need to be very careful about how you're approaching meditation, if you're going to be approaching meditation at all. Meditation is not meant to be a cure for mental illness. And if you're suffering from depression or any other serious mental illness or psychological condition, I would strongly recommend that you do not meditate unless you have the support of a therapist or a professional who can help to support and mentor you through that process. Now, if you have the support of someone to do that, that is great, but a lot of people tend to self-medicate with meditation, using meditation to solve their condition. Again, notice how I'm dropping into this utilitarian language, using meditation to cure their condition, which is maybe avoiding addressing the actual issues, which of course can be extremely complex. And one of the problems that can arise is that when the mindfulness is not strong enough, when the mindfulness is too weak and these feelings and tendencies are too strong, then it's easy to get caught up in a cycle where you can go round and round and proliferate around those same kind of problems. You can actually get caught up in those feelings of depression or feelings of anxiety or feelings of panic, and you don't have the distance to be able to step back and to really get a perspective on it. So this is why if you do have a serious emotional or psychological condition, I strongly recommend find some help from a qualified person who can help to mentor you. Maybe meditation will be good for you and will help to support your therapeutic process. That would be terrific, but maybe also it won't. It's not guaranteed. It will help in some cases. Now, leaving that aside, if we're talking about just an ordinary case where you feel some unpleasant feelings and so on arising and these kinds of things, this is where our contemplation of impermanence is really useful. And we just remind ourselves that these feelings will come and go, no matter how bad they are. We've all had lots of bad feelings. Where are they now? Where are they? We've all been sick. We've injured ourselves. Where's that gone? Right? We've all been abused or criticized or been upset or all of those things. Where are those feelings now? I mean, maybe they leave traces in us, but those feelings themselves have gone. And so no matter what comes to you, you will survive. No matter what feeling comes to you, you will get through it. You're going to last longer than those feelings do. So just be patient and reflect. It's okay. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. It's okay. I mean, it might not be great. It might not be what you want, but it's okay. It's just another kind of feeling. And so then, if you're patient, it will find its way to leave you by itself.
Great. Thank you, Bhante. And to the other venerables as well, if you ever want to add to anything and comment on anything, please feel free. Otherwise, I'll move to the next question because that's also related to what was just spoken about by Bhante Sujato. And Venerable Tashi, if I could ask you, take your time with your sip of water. The question is this: how do we practice the path of non-differentiation, especially when the habitual tendencies are so strong? Often the mind forces are so strong, it seems really difficult. We often react and only are aware post the fact after the damage is done.
I think we all are caught up in habitual patterns, and we all are constantly, in some sense, of course, seeking to get out of it. But there's also so much stress on seeking to get out of a habitual pattern that we become really too hard on ourselves, I think. And also because again, like what Bhante Sujato was saying about the the language that we use is also the outlook that we have to most of the things that we practice, or most of the things that we do. Right, wrong, doesn't matter, whatever that might be, virtuous, non-virtuous, right? Because when you really even are relying on Buddha Dhamma, or when you're relying on certain spiritual path for teachings and for guidance and for support, like we have a tendency to kind of, okay, I am going into this kind of program or this kind of training or doing this kind of thing, so there has to be this kind of outcome and output out of it, that there has to be productivity out of it, that I need to start feeling different, or I need to be experiencing something that is tangible, something that is fitting into this larger the current modern capitalist production oriented, result oriented world, right? I think when we are caught up in that, we often forget that the practice is to practice. Practice is not to be perfect. Like, for example, when we are simply sitting and actually doing a simple breathing meditation, often for many of us, for a long time, the practice is going to be simply whenever we are distracted to come back to our breathing. So the agenda there is not to be perfect, not to have a distraction at all. Probably eventually, yes, to have a more stable mind, but right now in the moment, in the practice, to be able to come back, right? To come back to our breathing, no matter how many times it is, right? To be patient with that, to be in that practice, right? But the same thing, to be able to transform our reactions into responses, thoughtful, mindful responses, is going to be a time-taking task. And we are not doing it to be, let's say, perfect human beings, or to feel good about ourselves. All of that, probably, yes, but we're also doing it in order to, take care of ourselves and take care of other people, and to have the larger picture in the mind, and also to be kinder with our own limitations, I think is important. Otherwise, it's easy to be lost even in a spiritual path, when the spiritual path becomes spiritual materialism, where we are expecting certain, clear, tangible outcomes. And that can be quite counterproductive, I think. So it's okay. It's not simply okay. I think we are imperfect. That's why we are on spiritual path. And these imperfections are going to take time. And we are on the spiritual path, thankful to these imperfections. So to be gentler with ourselves, with our practice, is very, very important, I think. And to keep coming back to our practice. We all are going to have falters. I mean, I, for a matter of fact, have in the last 1 year of my experiences, I've recognized my own afflictions unlike before, ever. Like, I've seen afflictions that I never thought I actually possibly, had in such an active manner, right? So I can beat myself all I want, but that's not going to do anything. So can I do something more about it? Can I be mindful? And can I recognize my limitation? Can I be respectful to my abilities, how to go through it, and be gentler with it, is what we need to be constantly. Also, I think one important thing to remember, all of this practice, I also believe Buddha said Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha as the three jewels, or three refuges. We need to figure out how to do this practice in a community, I think. Otherwise, the solitary idea of that you study the Dhamma, you contemplate, you meditate, you practice, and you become a better person. And if you're not, you're a horrible person, is really not helping any of us, I think. And because this individualistic notion is again not helping. So how can we become a community that cultivates a practice that is going to, transform our minds from ignorance to wisdom, from, hate to, kindness and love and compassion. And that has to be something we need to really figure out, I think.
Beautiful answer and beautiful reflections. Thank you so much, Venerable Tashi. We only have time for one last question, and this is a question for Ajahn Sona. Ajahn, I think you've got a few fans. And people are specifically asking some of these questions to you. This person has asked, if I understand your Dhamma talks on the 7 factors of enlightenment, before metta and the breath meet in joy, they will meet in mindfulness first, perhaps.
Yes. You are right.
Great.
Yes, you need.
And we are right on time.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the last question.
That was it. And just in terms of concluding this session, I'm so grateful for all of you being here and always as supporting Metta Centre as well. Any concluding remarks from any of you about some of the topics we've spoken about today? Any sharings you would like to have for all of us?
I don't have anything, but I was really curious to learn more about Venerable Tashi's work in India and what you're doing there. I don't know if you can tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. Thank you, Venerable. Basically, right now I'm based out of Hyderabad, which is a city in South India, and I work with the queer trans communities here largely. We recently have started a place called Queer Trans Wellness and Support Center, which also has come from our years of work here and community work and a collective work that people have been doing. It's nothing really innovative in that sense because all the things that center offers are the needs that have existed forever for queer trans people. So there's nothing really new, revolutionary we are offering. What we offer right now, we offer a helpline service. We offer a drop-in space for people to come by, drop by, watch movies, use the computer, read books, sleep, rest, relax, dress as you like, right? Because often these things as simple as the sound are so impossible for queer trans people in the regular world out there, in their own natal family homes or workplaces or public places. We also offer legal aid. Every week, one day, there will be a lawyer sitting and people with legal issues, any legal support needed can come and seek the support and guidance. And we also offer free mental health services. Every week, twice a day, we have group mental health activities. As well, individual therapy sessions, free of cost to the community members who need them. And we are working towards starting temporary shelter for people who are forced to leave their houses or kicked out of their houses and have nowhere else to go immediately. To provide them temporary shelter, we're slowly working towards starting that. That's a work I do, but I also work with the government in training police, in training sometimes even corporate people. And often, so much of my reliance happens on Dhamma, but also so much of my reliance happens on the community here, that how we work together as a community, how we manage to do things as a community. And this love and acceptance, I think community, as a queer community, for example, when you think about it, right, it's so complex. We have so much trauma, so much suffering, and so much less support and less resources. And somehow, there seems to be this something that working out where we, annoy, frustrate each other, be angry with each other, and at the same time, when it comes to coming together and working, we also do that. But so far, we do that in moments of crisis. So through the center, we are figuring out how can we do that in the non-crisis moments? How can there be joyful moments? How can be queer lives not just about survival, but queer lives can be about joy. Queer lives can be about, sharing that joy with others and creating a community that is more caring and nurturing than simply supporting each other in crisis. Yeah.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Venerable Tashi, the name of this organization? So I was just asking online.
So the organization, so Queer Trans Wellness and Support Center, we call it in short QT Center. QT as in,
Very cute.
Right, yeah. But the organization that runs is called Yugantar because we needed the project to be housed in an NGO. But the everyday functioning of the organization is taken care by a group of community members themselves who have been working in the community. So the idea is for it to be a community-led initiative, although organizational support, everything else provided by established organization called Yugantar in Hyderabad.
Wonderful. Thank you. And for those who are on the chat, we will be posting into the chat some of the links. And for those who are watching this on YouTube later on, you can also click on the description below. We'll have some resources, including the links to those organizations as well. So thank you so much to all of the venerables here. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and also your patience in answering these questions as well. And for those who asked questions and we didn't have the time to get to it, don't worry, we've got other Q&As, particularly tomorrow, and we hope that you can join then. So thank you again, venerables.